Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and here we talk about all things healing, embracing your story, and cultivating community. And for this month, I want to say Happy Women's Month. And I just want to say I'm so proud of you for all the things that you are doing and all the hats that you wear as a woman. And we'll be talking about those topics this month. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review because all of that helps us to grow this podcast. And also, I want to hear from you. What we should be talking more about, the things that you love hearing. And I actually want you to know that if you have a suggestion or a question, I would love for you to send me a voice note as a DM at Elizabeth Savvy, and you can be featured on the show. And any questions that you send on there as well, they can be featured as well on the show. So I am excited for this new month that we are talking about all things womanhood. And I am here at High Hello Labs in downtown Orlando, where they can help you with all video, podcast, production needs. And this is a beautiful studio space that I love. Also, if you are a woman here in Orlando, if you want to cultivate community, make friends, in adulthood, I know it can be hard to do so, you can join our She Cultivates Orlando community where we host monthly events and meaningful conversations. And I feel like that's a great way, especially for this month, to join in and meet amazing women. So for this month that we are talking about womanhood, I first wanted to start off with something that I feel like a lot of us maybe struggle with. And so for me, that is usually self-reliance. And so as someone that in the past episodes, I talked about like coming from the generation of like millennials and hustle culture and all of that, like when it comes to things that we want to achieve, which can be great things, I feel like a lot of us end up trying to achieve so many things and have like a list of like, here are my goals that I want to do. And like, I want to be the best at everything that I do. And so when I started off this month, February, I went to a conference in Texas with High Hello Labs and supporting Carolina, and she was one of the speakers at Refresh. And when I tell you that like, I went there as like supporting and like, yeah, great. And I took away so many things that really like impacted me personally of the way that I was doing my life. I feel like for a lot of us, and I'll start with myself, that I feel like I naturally struggle with the calmness and like the rest and like the always having to make even my rest productive. And I've talked about this before where it's like you kind of feel like there's always like a rush, and it's sometimes in your head, or it's like even when you're sitting, it's like your mind is still going. And even at night, like to be honest, when I'm going to sleep, it's like my mind sometimes is just like going. And so I usually wake up. So it's like I go to sleep and then it's like I wake up and then it's like I start thinking. And then I'm like, all right, I'm not going to go back to sleep for a little bit. So I literally get out of bed and I have to do a brain dump because I feel like my brain is still going. Like it's still going at 100 miles per hour. And so I have really been trying to work on that, to not feel like, where is that coming from? Like, why do I feel like the anxiety and just like it doesn't stop, you know? And when I talk to people and I talk to a lot of women around me, like they feel the same. It's like, they're like, oh my God, I forgot to do this. Or like, this is my list that I still have to do tomorrow. And so it's like a never ending cycle, you know? And so, in January, I was trying to like start off slow, and I did. Like I started off the year slow, very much more intentional. And then when I went to this conference, I felt like the word like self-reliant kept coming up. And there was the whole conference was really about just going after the dreams that God has put in your heart and like how to make that happen, but also like seeing maybe things that you kind of haven't even thought about, like dreams that you've kind of put away for so long. Like, what is God calling you to do now? And so one of the main speakers, which was like Sarah, she was talking about just striving versus stewarding. And so when you're striving, you feel a lot of insecurity and mistrust in God, and you feel very inward focused because you're always looking at like, what is my capacity and what am I capable of doing? And you feel overwhelmed. And when you're stewarding things and the gifts that God has given you, you feel more like you're focused and you have a direction and drive because you're partnering with God in the things that He has put in your heart to do. So it's like the striving is you doing everything and like you trying to be like, I'm going to do that, I'm going to achieve, I'm going to do, versus actually allowing God to like help you through the things that you're working on. And the word that kept like coming up, so it's just funny because like God will speak to you in interesting ways and He'll be like, girl, I know you haven't been doing things right. And I'm going to tell you, but in a loving way, because that's how God is. And I felt like He was reminding me that it's like, I am busy. And He doesn't want me to just be busy. He wants me to have time with Him, for Him to partner with me in the things that I'm doing. And I felt like, for me personally, something that I struggle with, that which I've shared, is like the control, or like the fake control that I sometimes feel like I have. And when I think about a partner, or like partnering with God in your dreams, a partner is someone that you can count on, you can depend on, you can talk about ideas with, that if you have a bad day, like they can step up and help you. And you can kind of like relax because you know that they got your back. And it's like that day when I was in that session, it's like I got it. I was like, Liz, God put these dreams and gifts in your heart, just like He has for you. Like He's put all these things and like all these amazing gifts that you have. And if He put them in your heart, they're for a reason, but also He's going to give you the capacity to do that. But that's only with Him, because when you try to do it outside of Him, that's when you get overwhelmed, burnt out. And when I have even heard like past episodes that I've done, and even in the past year, I remember that I said, I'm like, I don't know why in the beginning of the year, I feel like a drive and I'm like, yeah, like I'm going. And then at the end of the year, I end up feeling burnt out. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? And I literally felt like a little conviction of like, I feel like I try to do things by myself a lot. Like I try to be self-reliant. Like I got it. I'm good. I can do it. And it's like when I'm really not allowing God to help me and actually rely on Him, because He's the one that put the dreams in the first place in me. He's the one that gave me, and He has helped me to be here today. And so I wanted to start off this month as more of not just saying of like, wow, you're amazing, you're doing all these things. It's like, where is your strength coming from? Because as a woman, I know that we sometimes get burnt out. We feel overwhelmed. We feel like we have to do so many things. And we put that pressure on ourselves. It's not anybody else. And sometimes, yes, it's society because of the standards and all of that. But it's also because of our own personal, sometimes ambitions or certain things that we have or we hold for ourselves that we're like, no, like I'm not going to wait. I'm going to do it now. I know that for myself too. With anything, it's like if there's like a new spot that I want to try, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go do that this week. Like if there's something that I want to do, like I do it right away. Like I'm someone that it's like I don't wait. Like I naturally tend to just like get it, like be like a go-getter. But when it comes to like building your dreams and like going after certain things and like I don't know, building stuff, something that's lasting, like long lasting, it takes time, and there's a lot of the waiting time, and there's a lot of like, especially, yes, you hear of those overnight successes and that can be great, but I believe that like there's so much good that can come out of like the slow growth of things, when it's like you're growing, you're molding into the person and the character and like all of that kind of thing, and then you get to where you want to be. And that's what most people, it is a long road. It's not just like an overnight. And during the long process though, I myself can get impatient and I'm like, nope, I'm going to do it regardless. Or like, I'm good. I'm going to like come up with the solutions and all of that. And so during this conference, I literally felt like it was like, God was like, girl, chill, like chill. Like I am with you. I'm working it all together. And you being with me and you relying and giving things to me, like your anxiety, your stress, that's what's going to give you the peace and the strength to continue going. Because when you're in your head and when you're anxious and you're always like, all right, trying to find things out, and you're like, you're going to hit a wall because you can't do it without me. Like, you can't, like, you can only do so much. And so I really felt like I needed that. Like, it's funny how, like, you can be busy, but God will meet with you. He will find a way to get you. So you cannot be busy enough because he will be like, sit down. We're gonna chat. But in such, again, like such a loving way. I felt like the Holy Spirit, and just like a load off after that weekend. I felt like, all right, Lord, you got me. I know, like, you got me. And I know I shared earlier this year, which in January, I also shared that I was writing, that I wanted to write a book. And so I wanted to write and publish something by this time next year. And so with that, I feel like in the weekend that I was there, I got like a confirmation on like the topics and like the things, and just so many things have been like falling into place for that. And it's scary because I'm like, the imposter syndrome, right, of myself is like, who am I to write something? Like, what do I have to say, right? Like, those are the voices that I tell myself. And then it's like, what does God say about me? And like, he's used all the things that I've gone through for good. And he's really restored my life in such a different way. When I look back to a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was just talking to a friend about that I know that we go through things to be able to help others. And in the moment, though, we don't see it that way. And sometimes we're not like in our full, like, healed process. So then we're like, okay, but I still struggle with certain things. I still have my insecurities. I still have this and that. But that's why we need him, because he is the one that gives us what we don't have. You know, he's the one that when we're weak in our insecurities, or like when we look at ourselves, like, that's one thing, but it's like he's asking us to just rely and trust him, you know? So the word I feel like I kept just being reminded about is to partner with God with your dreams and the things that you have in your heart, and that you will get so much farther that way than trying to do things on your own, especially as someone that, when you want to be good or succeed in all the areas, because it's impossible to give 100 in all the areas. And I'm sure that as you see on social media, like, you see people's life and you're like, they have it all together. It's like, no, we all have our own personal struggles. But even like that, the encouragement is that regardless of our struggle, we can continue going with God. And so the other message where I wanted to like talk about today was also about like, you are not what you produce. And so a big part of, even like this past week, I was sick and I was having an event, and I was just like being very hard on myself, because I'm like, I should be on social media, I should be posting, I should have batch recorded, like I should have done like all these things prep, but they're just like things that are happening in my life. Like, after the conference came, like, life started lifing, like I told Chris today. And so when I felt that way, I started like that, like beating myself up, like, oh, like why didn't I prep for that? Or like, I need to show up, you know? And so I know that I also struggle with like putting myself as like, I am what I produce, or like, I am what I do. And my identity doesn't come from that. But I know that I naturally struggle with that. Like, I struggle with being like, well, if I don't do this, then that means that I am not going to be successful, or I'm not ambitious enough, or I'm not this. When it's like, just because you have a day or a week off, or like just because you don't post, or just because people don't see what you're doing, it doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. But in the social media world, I know that that can feel like that. Like, you feel like you have to like prove that you're doing something, you know? And that has been my goal, is to really like continue to find my identity in Christ, and not in, because I am not what I do. Because even if I didn't do what I do, I am still worthy and I am still enough as I am. And something that one of the speakers said that like I stuck with me. It's like, I am doing good at the things that matter. So in society, we know that we can compare our lives to like the financial success, or like if you're Forbes under 30, or like, all those things that like people want to maybe be a part of, if you are someone that strives to have those achievements. And it can be very different for you, but those are just some examples. And I was like, you know what? Like, the things that matter to me truly and that make my heart filled with joy is when someone goes to an event and they're like, I am so glad that I came because I found a genuine friend and I feel like I'm not alone. Or they hear my podcast and they say like, wow, like that topic resonated with me. Like, thank you so much for sharing. Like, you said exactly what I needed to hear. Or just being around the people that I care about and like feeling like the love and the care and the support and all those moments, like that is what I truly care about. It's not about the numbers, or it's not about all those things. Like, so in the areas that I am doing good at is that I have a great community. I am doing something that I enjoy, and I have the necessities. I have the basic things in my life, and I'm good with that. And I feel like that line of like, I am doing good at the things that matter is important. And that is what I took away also from that weekend, was like, Liz, you're doing great. Like, you're doing great, sweetie. Like, you're fine. Like, all the other things will work together as long as you put God first and you stop relying on yourself and you work on the things and trust that you're doing great at the things that matter. And so wanted to share that with you guys because I feel like in the midst of this month, I know that it's like, all right, achieving, doing like women empowerment, but I wanted to share just an honest moment of like stuff that I've worked through and I'm working through right now. And just a really big takeaway from that weekend, because it was like, I know that it's all in like God's timing of things, but sometimes we just try to like get ahead of it, or we're like, I got you. Like, I'm good. Like, you told me to do that. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to go and make it happen, and those are great things to have, right? Like, those are great traits to have, but sometimes we're putting the energy into the wrong things, and like we're focusing on the wrong things that will get us burnt out. And and that's something that I have to sit with myself with. So this month, I joined like a book Bible study, and kind of changed like my like morning routine to be like more intentional with how I start my day, to make sure that I am first aligned and like giving it to God and doing the brain dumps when I have to, because I do that a lot. Like, honestly, to like pray and like meditate and like write, like that is a way that calms like my own thoughts and anxieties. So if you haven't tried it, definitely do so. But just wanted to encourage you that is something that maybe you struggle with, or maybe you don't. But as this month goes on, it's like being a woman is a gift, and all the gifts that you have, if you are a mom and have a partner and a wife and doing all these things and have a business and all of that, like, you're doing amazing. And I want to know how you're managing, but I also want you to know that you are not what you do. So even if you did none of that, you are still enough, and you deserve to rest and have someone to rely on, and to not do that all alone and on your own. So I hope this encouraged you today, and I am excited for this month for the different topics that we're going to have. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. I know that Spotify and Apple doesn't make it that easy to leave a review, so if you need help, you can DM me and I will help you. It's like the stars at the bottom, and however I can encourage you, support you, I would love to do so. And if you haven't as well, follow me at Elizabeth Savvy on social media. So I will see you guys next week, and happy International Women's Day.